In this tutorial, we will be showing you how to conduct outreach to fellow real estate agents in order to market your own exclusive listings. The purpose of the outreach is really to provide an additional boost to your marketing efforts. And in particular, what we're trying to do is to contact the agents who may be involved with similar transactions such as our own. More specifically, agents who are listing other properties that are similar to the one we're listing. So we could contact listing agents, and we may also want to contact any buyer's agents who were involved or associated with other transactions similar to ours that closed in the recent past. And the reason for this, not to state the obvious, is that if an agent has done, for example, in this case, a condo sale in Greenpoint around this similar price point in the not too distant past, it means that there's a possibility they might be in touch with more buyers who are similar to the ones that they've worked with in the past. And fortunately for us, StreetEasy makes it very easy for us to figure out exactly which listing agents and buyer agents we should contact in order to advertise our own exclusives. So in this example, we have a listing of ours that is in Greenpoint. We actually just reduced the price on this one, and that's actually the reason why we're going to be conducting some outreach today. So we want to send some additional marketing messages to other agents, giving them a heads up, personal feel of the price reduction, and that may encourage them to give our listing another shot, or possibly if they have new buyers, they might direct them our way. So we'll get right into it now. But in essence, what you need to do to start is you need to be logged into your agent account on StreetEasy. The reason for this is we're going to be using the contact sellers agents box in order to actually send out these marketing messages. So once you're logged in, you'll want to open up another tab, and then on the top here, click on Agent Resource Center and then go to Comparables Reports. Now, once we've clicked on Comparables Reports, the idea behind the exercise is to find a list of units that are similar to the one we are currently listing. So the first thing we can do is we can go ahead and select the price point. So we can assume that the buyer who is considering something around $615 is probably capping their search around $7, maybe $750. The ultimate goal of the exercise is to have a sufficient amount of listings for us to contact. So if we had started with 700 and we only got 2 results, then we could go back and adjust the criteria. So in this case, we're just going to start with 750 on the upper limit, and then for the lower end of the range, we can just put, say, 500. As far as location is concerned, we can go ahead and start by putting the specific location of our listing, which is Greenpoint. So if we were to go into the CMA Comparable Report Generator, we can put Greenpoint in the location. Additionally, it's quite important to make sure that the property type is, in this case, a condominium. Now, if we were actually doing a comp report for a co-op, you could make the argument possibly that you could also include condos, and that's because, perhaps some buyers who are thinking of co-ops might also be open to a condo. That's usually the case, but they're almost always capped out in terms of the purchase price by way of the fact that co-ops are significantly cheaper than condos. So however many people want a condominium, usually they just cannot afford the size property that they need. In this case, we're going to start with condo, but in theory, if we wanted to add co-op, it is possible that some people may also be considering co-ops, particularly owner-occupants, non-investor type of buyers. So going back to this, it looks like also this is a 1-bed. So for the time being, we may want to start with a 1-bed. And then let's go ahead and click Generate Comparables Report. So it looks like the results are fairly acceptable for our current exercise. As you see, we have 10 active listings, 10 in contract, and 5 recorded sales, also 6 unavailable listings. And the goal, therefore, is to now just go through each one and basically send a message to the listing agent in the case of active and in contract. And then in the case of recorded sales, it's possible that we can find out who both the listing agent and the buyer agents are. So if we have the buyer agent available, we can also go ahead and contact them. I may also want to adjust the recorded sales to 120 days, not because we are short on the number of listings to reach out to, but primarily because just want to show you that if you were to say do this for another listing and you only had 3 listings appear, one way you could increase the number of listings is to ascend up in terms of the number of days you're searching for the recorded sales. So if we adjust to 120 days, let's figure out how many more closed deals we have. So it looks like there were 5 before, and now there are 6. So we picked up an extra deal. So let's go ahead and start the outreach process. So you'd want to go to active listings here. We'll just click on the first one, right click, open it in a new tab. And once we're on the listing, we can go ahead and submit a contact request. So the internet appears to be a little slow, but that won't stop us. So let's just give it a minute. And in the meantime, I'm going to open up Microsoft Word, and we've actually prepared a draft message for us to use when we're contacting the agent. So here it is. And feel free to be creative on this. And it's very important to note that this language is obviously for a price reduction. But so if you had a new listing, you could just more or less modify this sentence, but the other parts of this message would in theory still apply. So we're going to copy that, and we'll open up Safari, and then we're going to add a note. So right here, we're going to just paste in what we copied. So a little bit slow, but let's give it another second to load. So here we are, we're going to paste it in, and then we'll update the name to whom we're sending the contact form, so Jerry. And then this is an interesting box, so it's a CC. So if you're a co-listing agent, you may want to CC your colleague who's on the listing with you. If it's a company listing, one of ours, you'd want to copy Team's email. And in this case, we're going to copy Emreen, who's one of the co-listing agents on this particular deal. So just going to proofread this real quick. Looks good. And then make sure you check the box, send me a copy, just so you have, in your inbox a record of the outreach. Can help you keep track of the effectiveness of the message, who responds. It's just generally good to keep a record of it. So go ahead and hit send message right here. And once the message is sent, it gives you a little pop-up on the top. So we've basically done one, and then the idea would be to just do that exact same thing for all of these listings. One thing to keep in mind though, in some cases there are multiple listings in the same building, and in that case you obviously don't want to send the same contact message to the same listing agent for a bunch of listings in one particular building. So in this case, it looks like 164 Norman has 2 listings. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're the same listing agent, but it's worth double checking. So let's take a look. So the first listing has 2 agents from Corcoran, and the second listing is a different agent from another firm. Therefore, it would be appropriate for us to contact both of them. In particular, we do not want to send out a contact request if it's like a new development that has the same listing agent. So one example of that is 11 Hoyt. If we go to 11 Hoyt, or rather if we were to run a CMA for listings in this particular neighborhood, so in downtown Brooklyn, we could possibly end up with literally dozens of results, which are all from just one building. And that makes sense because this is a huge building. So in other words, if you're running a report for this particular property type, let's say you're looking at like 3 beds, you're going to get a ton of results from this building. and they're all going to be the same listing agent. So you would definitely not want to send the same contact form request to all these listings, because it would go to the same person. So just make sure that you're not sending the same message to the same person over and over again, because it's spammy and it'll probably have the opposite effect as you intended, which was hopefully to increase the likelihood of agents actually contacting you to work with you on your listing. So if we go back to the comparables, we want to do the same thing that we did for the active listings for in contract. And then at that point, you may also want to consider with unavailable. So unavailable listings on average didn't actually sell, but that doesn't mean by any means that the listing agents on these properties weren't in touch with buyers. There were certainly buyers that touched these listings, and the listing agents may very well be working with them, even if the particular property through which they met the buyer didn't sell or is no longer for sale. Now for recorded sales, just want to go over one of these as an example. It's a slightly different procedure, primarily because when you right click on the listing, instead of taking you directly to the listing, it takes you to a closing deal page, more or less. So it's like a summary of the sale, and you can actually contact the listing agent by going to the link, or clicking on the link rather, where it says originally listed for. So if you click on this link, it's going to take you to the original sale listing for the particular unit. Now, if this had a buyer agent involved, you would see another box down here next to Stephanie, which says buyer agent, and then it would have the contact info of that buyer's agent. So just to quickly go here, we clicked on originally listed for, and it took us to the listing itself. And then you would do that same exercise. You would just click contact agent in order to send them that same message we'd sent to that other listing before. So if we go back to comparables, would just like to find one of these listings that actually has a buyer agent, just so you can see that. I'm going to go ahead and click on all of these, right click all of them, open them in new tabs, and then let's just go through each one in order to find a buyer's agent. So here's the first one. Again, 2 listing agents, no buyer's agent. This one. This deal doesn't appear to be for a listing that was marketed, so it might be an off-market deal. There's no listing associated with it. There's no listing agent. So for something like this, there's nothing we can do to contact. There's nobody to contact, rather. In this case, listing agent, so there's no buyer agent. Fantastic. So here's one that actually does have a buyer agent. So what we do here is, in order to contact the listing agent, we would just click on the link here, open that up, and use the standard contact form. Now for the buyer agent, you would actually just click on his name, her or his name, and then once you're on the actual profile page of the agent, you would use the contact this agent form in order to get their attention. So it's a little different than if it's a listing agent. If it's a listing agent, you're actually on the listing page to contact them. You don't have to click on the listing agent's profile. You can send them a message through the listing itself. But for a buyer agent, you actually have to contact them through their personal profile on StreetEasy. And again, you can get there by clicking on the buyer's agent box, which was somewhere. I think it was back here. And yes, so it would be on the closed deal page. You'd see something that says buyer agent. So just in summary, what we did was we searched for a bunch of comparable listings to our own, both active and contract and closed deals. And we then reached out to the listing agents as well as any buyer agents who have been involved in these transactions. And the purpose of doing this was really just to get in touch with real estate agents who might have touched base with any potential buyers in the not too distant past who may possibly consider our listing. This is a great thing to do both for new listings for sure, as well as whenever you make a considerable price reduction. It's always a good idea to think about getting in touch with these agents, getting their attention, and this is a pretty effective way to do it, but by no means the only way. If you have any comments, feel free to leave one below the video. And if you are in New York City and you are an agent looking for a sponsoring broker, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to speak with you.